said that people are very unaware of their own accent.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen? Can you give that example where people's like, yeah, I don't sound like that, and then you're like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Like, people are not aware of the accent, and I've seen that myself with I was doing an experiment with my cousin for his class actually. He's like, yeah, you need to sound kind of like I do, like this. I'm like, you have these, and I was just thinking he has these and these traits that indicate that they're from the north side of Brazil,
Right.
but he's not aware of that.
Right.
So how does that?
Yeah. So I can think of three interesting cases. One is Bill Above in the 1960s and 70s. He was interested in R dropping in New York City. So people saying the word car as like ka, or the word for, or like sauce sounding the same as the word source sounding the same as sauce. So like sauce. So he was interested in that in the 1960s, and there was one case where he was interviewing a mother and her daughter, and he went. Back then, they often interview people over multiple sessions, and so he was interviewing them, and they're I guess very openly made fun of people who drop their R's, and he's like, "But you drop your R's," and they're like, "No, we don't. No, we don't," and he's like, "No, I'm pretty sure you do." So he went back and found a clip of them dropping their R's and played it for them.
Well,
And I forget exactly how he phrased it, but he said it was disheartening in a way that's painful to see. Like he said, like they were so like the pride in their own speech was completely shattered because of that. And so when you point things out to people, non-standard things in their speech, they don't like it, and they often change their speech pretty drastically because of it.
Wow.
And so people are just not aware of the non-standardness in their speech. There's another one. This is from Nancy Najelski in 1999. She was interested in Michigan, and a fair number of studies in Michigan have shown that that Michiganders are pretty linguistically secure. They think they're God's gift to American English. That American English is based on how they talk, even though it's pretty well documented that there's this thing called the Northern Cities shift that is pretty common in places like
What is Northern City?
Oh, yeah. So the Northern City shift is a vowel shift that it's basically the stereotyped Chicago accent. So like Chicago, where you had this going up to an sound. And there's a whole shift of vowels here. And I don't do a lot of research on it, so I can't really imitate it very well. But it's sort of like a exaggerated like northern accent, northern United States. Anyway, places like Detroit have this pretty strongly, or at least they did. And so what she did is she collected recordings of people and found that they have the Northern City shift in their speech, this thing that's relatively stigmatized. She then later played clips of a person speaking. It's a little bit complicated how she did it, but the point is she played three versions of it. One version sounded northern, one person sounded standard, one person sounded maybe in a different way. And the people, I think almost all of them said, I sound like the person that sounds standard and not like the person that sounds like them, which is northern. And so they literally didn't hear their own accent, and they couldn't identify someone saying, yeah, that person sounds like me. They look towards the standard and say, no, that's what I sound like.
Wow.
And so Dennis Preston, who is a linguist who does a lot of this perceptual dialectology stuff, he said about this, he said, your brain gets in the way of your ear, where you have these ideas about language and about your own language, and that prohibits you, or it blocks you from hearing what's actually going on.
Crazy.
I see that now in Utah. So this is my third example. So in Utah, you get the word mountain and other similar words like Leighton and satin, button, kitten, gluten, where you get this T followed by an unstressed vowel or a nasal. And across the United States, it's very common across like media, podcasts, audiobooks, like radio, you say mountain, where you get a glottal stop followed by a syllabic nasal, mountain. Well, in Utah, people think that they're the only ones that do that. And there's a long story that I could go into. I'm probably not going to have time to do that. But in Utah, people are convinced that they're the only ones that use these glottal stops. And so now in Utah, they don't like that. And so they start to say mountain with a nice clear T. Mountain is a normal way of saying it when you're in more careful settings, like if you're in a job interview or if you're giving a talk or some sort of more formal or more careful situation. But when you're talking casually with your friends, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm gluten free," or I saw this satin thing the other day, or I was holding a kitten," or you have these nice strong T's in places that you don't normally hear them across the rest of the country, but in Utah you do. And so this is an interesting case where Utahns don't hear the standardness in their speech. What they're doing is they're hyper correcting toward this like fictitious standard that doesn't actually exist.
What?
And by doing so, they're now creating their own unique Utah accent that is like this hyper corrected version of it. So look, what I like to say about this is Utahns sound Utah when they avoid sounding Utah. They don't want to sound like they have a Utah accent, so this pendulum swings and now they have this other Utah accent. But really, they don't realize that the rest of the country says mountain just like they do. And so that's another fun case of that.
Language is so fun.
Yeah, normally this reminds me of the Brazilian example of the São Paulo rhotic R, ra, like porta. But then you go to the central region, Mato Grosso and Goiás, they also use that. And people are not aware of it, and I'm actually doing a study exactly on that.